Hi everyone, this is Sharon. Today I have a flip through of a custom requested prayer journal for Pam. And Pam had requested this journal kind of replicate one that I made for Kimberly a few months back. So I tried to sort of duplicate that one as much as possible. So you'll see some things that might look familiar in here. The cover I used comes from an old 1800s book and it's quite ornate. And because the cover and the buckle and the spine are fairly ornate, I just use this very simple velvet ribbon for the tie. I really didn't feel like I needed to add any charms either. Sometimes that just takes away from the elements that you have there. So the spine I had to recreate to increase it. I'll put the dimensions of everything. There are 7 signatures in here, about 100 pages, but I'll put all the specifications down in the description so you have those. I use this antique French fabric and some old lace to cover my spine, and then the back is similar to the front. On the inside, I use these beautiful letter digitals from Rachel at Roxy Creations for my inside covers. I'm still contemplating whether to add some labels or not. That's the front one, and this is the back one. And then for the interior of my spine, I use the same fabric as I did on the spine. It's just a different section of it. It was kind of a striped pattern, so this has the dark browns and greens and pinks in there. So on this first page, I created a pocket that wraps around the page and forms a tab. And it's some waxed straw paper that I got from Rachel at Roxy Creations. On there, I hung this little bead and this metal. And then I just adorned the page with some old lace. And then I added this tag. There's a little corner tuck in the back, so there's another tag on the tag. I'm not sure if Pam will use this for storing ephemera or memorabilia, or if she'll use it for writing, but there's places for all of those. It is stuffed quite heavily with a lot of ephemera, which she can move around or take out if she wants to. Here I've got a side tuck, and in there I've got this little journaling card that I made. And then a book page, and then this is an image from a book also. I like to include a lot of nature-y things in my prayer journals. Here's a beautiful old blue piece of ledger paper. And I just trimmed that with this beautiful trim I got from my friend Renee at Renee's At It Again. She gifted me with some really beautiful things, and you'll see those throughout this journal. That just flaps open, and then I've got this journaling card. I back this with it's like a cheesecloth, and then I just put a stamp on there. Here I embellished the page with some old paper and some embossed paper. On this page, this is the digital I used, and this is an old book page. And then I made this card. And this is a pattern like the front fly sheet of this book that I used, and I just used that to back the tag. Here on my strings in the center of the signature, I just added a little bit of lace. And then I created some pockets, which I adorned with fabric and old book parts. And then got a couple of tags in the pockets. I reinforced the center of this paper with some additional paper. So there's a little bit of collaging on there. And then these tags I made with some tailor-made journal images. Some beautiful lace and pale blue paper on the back. Here I clipped on a couple of pieces that I made This is a prayer card with some lace on the bottom. And then this is just a little journaling piece. I've used quite a few of these scripture and text, Bible texts that I used from Raindrop Lila in here. On this page, it's got this beautiful background, and then I have this picture of Jesus and Mary, and I added some lace to the bottom of it, and then did some stenciling on the back. Here again, I've got some beautiful trim on there, and then in that flip, I've got this tag, some writing paper on the back. It's a really thin onion skin that I attached to an old book page. And then this is a page from a little signature from this book that I used. Here we've got this beautiful sketching on the back, and then I've got this large journaling card that I made, and there's a little side tuck there with another space to journal on. I've used lots of different digital artists in this journal, so if there's something that you see that you're wondering about, just ask me down in the comments. Here I've got a corner tuck that I stitched on up on the top of that page, and then I've got this journaling card I made with a pocket. This is an original prayer card, and oh no, it's not an original. It's scanned from an original. And then the back I added some scripture, and then this is an original page from an old prayer book. Here I've got some treated napkin that I just used as sort of a tip-in on that page. And then there's this beautiful image. I just added a little ribbon and some sparkly. Here on this page, I've got this belly band with this beautiful old lace. And then in there I've got this card that I made, some embossed paper on the back. And then this is a digital from Roxy Creations. Some writing room on the back of that. This is a page from a prayer book that I have, The Last Supper. Here I added this medallion as my little side tuck on this page. Some room for writing there and some beautiful washi tape from Lace Boutique 1. And then I added this antique postcard. I just thought this reminded me of Jesus and his flock. And then this is from a book that I got from Renee, and it's got some maps and things of the Holy Land. Here in the center of the signature, I actually, well, let me pull this out first and show it to you. This is from a book that has all kinds of different old alphabets. Just thought that was rather neat. And then this page, I put this paper doily in the center, and I adorned these pockets here with some velvet ribbon and faux buttons. And I just left this open so that you could see the full page in the image. But that can flap up and use for storing things. Here I did a little embellishment on the page with a wax seal and some fabric and lace. And then on this page, again, I used some of that map book page, and then I just added this little ribbon there for my belly band. And then I inserted this little card that I made. And then this page is a nice crinkly piece of paper that I got from Wynette at Wynette's Crafting Corner. I'm just about out of those, but I used a couple in this journal. Here I just added this cross to the page, and then on this side I've got a belly band with some pretty lace on there, and then a beautiful background. And then in there, I tucked this piece that I made. I tied up with some string. And then that opens. And on the inside, I just created this little side tuck. So I've got a tag in there. And then I've got a couple of pieces of beautiful old antique ephemera that I just kind of tucked in there. And then I've got this image on the back. And this side is a page from a floral book that I have. I always skip pages when I do flip throughs. I notice after I'm done, so I got to be careful. Okay, here I've got a corner pocket with this handkerchief, some beautiful lace on the edges. And I just tucked in there this tag that I made. And then I've got a little tag on the back. Love this beautiful image. Here I created a pocket with the steep plum lace and added this die cut. And then that's what the back looks like. And then I've got this original prayer card and the book page in there. Just did some stitching on there. Here I've got an old music sheet, and I just clipped onto the side of that page this little card, some embossed paper on the back. And then I've got this double tag that I wrapped around the side of the page and just backed it with some dictionary page and added this beautiful fabric there. Here I embellished this page with some metallic paper and this little wax dot there. There was a wax dot on the page, so I thought I would cover it with a real one. Here I created a top tuck with that beautiful image, and I love the background page on there. And then in there, I've got this plate from a rose book that I have. I just did some punching on the bottom and attached it to one of the pages describing the roses. And then here, this side of the page actually flips out. So there's some writing space in there. And then I've got this tag that I inserted, the chalice. Backed it again with that fly paper from this book. Here on this side of the page, let's see if I got something clipped in the back. Nope. So I've got this journaling card that I made, and I backed it with that beautiful gold paper, created this corner tuck, and then just inserted a couple of little cards that I made in there. And then this flips out, so there's more space to tuck things there. Here I just put this image down on the page. And then on this side of the page, I've got this top tuck. I've got quite a few images in here from Christy at Everlasting Journals. That's one of hers. And then in here, I've got this beautiful image with some writing room on the back. And then this is an antique piece of French ephemera. Here I just did a little embellishing with this ribbon and button on the page. And then I've got this die cut cross on this French notebook page. And here I just line the side with some fabric so that flips out. And then in there I tuck this antique postcard and this beautiful book page. Here I added some beautiful trim again from Renee. On the top of this page, I added this beautiful kind of embroidered piece. I think it may have been a napkin or something like that. And then in there, I've got this triptych that I made. So I've got this picture of Jesus healing the blind man, which I cut into thirds. And then on the back, I don't know if you recall from Kimberly's journal, but I did something similar where I used this this ribbon that I put across and just stitched that on, and then I created little belly bands with that, and then I added these hand-stitched pockets on here. So there's a little bit of hand stitching on those, some lace and fabrics, and then I just tucked in various pieces of paper and this little angel image. And then up here, I've got a die cut cross in that pocket, just fun little things to explore. Here in the center of this signature, I just got some stenciled pockets. And then in there, I've got these two journaling cards. So there's this one. These two images were taken from the same landscape picture. And I just separated them, put them in the frames, added the ribbon at the top. And then on the back, I've got some embossed paper. It's raised and I just inked that. And then it's got some little stretchy lace belly bands on there where you could tuck some things. Here I've got a top tuck with this French ticking fabric. That's what the page looks like. And then in there I've got this image backed with some wax paper made to look like leather. And then this piece, I just added these little tabs with some eyelets. Added string to that. And then in the back, there's a little pocket in there where you could put something. I left some of the pockets empty because this is getting very, very fat, this journal. So Pam can add some of her own things in there if she wants to. Here I just did a little embellishing with some old fabric and lace. And then on this side there's another flip out. And then in there I've got this journaling card. And I added this piece of paper in the back for lots of writing room. And it's actually a paper that I found in an old book. And it's got a prayer on there. Thanks be to God for various things. And I just thought that was nice to put on there. And then this card, I just backed that with some ledger. Here I've got this beautiful cut work from my friend Catherine. And I'm working my way through that. She gave me a really nice supply of those, and I've got a few left yet. And then here I just added a fabric tab. In this pocket, I added this piece of ephemera, and then this is a die cut that I put on the back. And this is just a botanical book page, and I love how simple it is, but I think it's really beautiful. I just folded the page over, put some holes in there, and strung this velvet ribbon through. And this is some beautiful, really deep, deep red, almost black velvet ribbon that I got from Gisela at oh, I'm gonna forget, Lavish Laces. I got this deep red and a chocolate from her, and they're just really gorgeous. Here I just did some collaging on this book page with some church architecture on it. And then here I added this beautiful trim piece and just added a cross to the bottom of that. And then in most of my prayer books, I have to add my favorite nun. I absolutely love the blues in that photo or that image. No matter what paper you put it on, it just looks so beautiful. And that's from, I think that's a freebie from the Graphics Fairy. Here on this page, got this beautiful lace background, and then I clipped on this piece. So I've got this image that I stitched or glued to some old book page. And then on the back, I've just got these heart images that I backed with some craft paper. And then I created a couple of tuck spots with those. So I've just got a few little things in there that I've tucked in, some small cards that can be used for journaling. And this cross image. And then on this side of the page, I have this beautiful old piece of cut lace that I hand stitched onto a piece of fabric. So it's kind of like a double fabric flip. So you could do some private journaling under there or tuck something under. Here I created a belly band with this, it's a vintage like organizer divider, and it's got this beautiful brass, I don't know, tab or index tab on there, I guess. And I just embellished that with some lace. And then in there I took some old music paper and an old German book page. Here again is another church image on this side of the page. And then in this pocket, I've got another botanical book page that I inserted. Here I created a corner tuck with some grosgrain ribbon, and I just added a full button on there. And then in there I've got this card. So I just kind of tied all these together, this layer, and then this back layer. And these are some old book pages. It had this beautiful brown fly sheet, and then a couple of other sheets that are blank that can be used for writing. And then I just did some stenciling on there. Here I added a cross to the page. And then this is, I think, one of my favorite images of Jesus and Mary. This one I think has, I believe that might be John the Baptist, I'm not sure, but it's called The Madonna of the Chair. Here I did some stenciling at the top of that page, and on this page I just added this little die cut cross in there. Here I've got these half circle pockets. So in this one, I've got this French cabinet card. The base is original. I didn't care for the picture. It didn't really go with my journal, so I just added this image on the top of this girl getting her first communion or else confirmation, I'm not sure. And then in this one, I've got some original prayer cards. I know this one says Germany. I'm not sure the origin of this one. Here I added this fabric ruffle to this ledger page. In the center, I folded the ledger in. I really didn't want to cut any of it because I think they're so beautiful, those pages. I just added a little embellishment on this side of the page, and then I've got these large pockets here. So in those pockets, I've got, and then I added this image to the back. Got these tags that I made, botanicals, and I just got little belly bands on the back and inserted some of this off-cut beautiful ledger paper. And this one as well. And then I've got one of the original book pages from this book in here. Just created a little kind of folio or a folder that you can use to store things, and I just added some flowers on there. Here I embellished the page with some lace and an old pin. Here I've got a lace pocket with the image on the back. And then in there I've got this vintage card. It's actually a Christmas type card. It's got some beautiful gold edging on there. And then this piece I made, I just clipped it together with this cross clip, and then it's kind of a triptych image as well. I just folded it over, and it's got some journaling space on the back. Again, I did some stenciling on there. Another one of those beautiful Arabic pages from Lynette. And then here on this page, I just embellished a little bit with some lace on the top. Here I use this trim for double belly band. And then it's got that beautiful background on there. And then in there, I've got this piece. I love this image. I'm trying to think where I found it. I don't even know where I got this. I would have to look. But I used this, looks like an image of a saint. Get my strings off here for this back, and I just added a label. And then on the inside, I just created a little scrappy pad kind of a thing. I inserted a card that I made. And then there's a little bit of lace on there, but it's just got some offcuts of various types of paper in here. This is just a beautiful old book page. Here what I did was I took kind of a signature of that book and wrapped it down. So I've got this nice big huge pocket here, and I just folded that back and added a full button on there. So there's some ample storage room in there. Here on this side of the page, I created a pocket with that image, and then I've got this tag that I put in there. And this old postcard. And then here on my clip, I've just got this beautiful crystal. And then I've clipped in there this little tag. This is a side tuck, so you could tuck something in there. Here for my page, I added this beautiful piece of lace. And then I've got this scene from a book, Jerusalem as It Is. I'm not sure what year this would be considered. Here on this side, I just left some writing room and did a little stamping on the top. And then over here, I created a side tuck with this lacy image. And then I created this tag. This is an old German book page. And then here I just added some of my watercolor swatches and some lace to this piece. Here I've got another scripture, raindrop lila, and then this lacy piece in the back that acts as kind of a bookmark or place to write. I put some ledger on the back. This was clipped on this side, and that's just a little prayer card that I made. Another nice deep pocket on this page. And another image from that book. That's around Nazareth. Here for my top tuck, I've got this, it's actually an old French sampler piece. I believe it was from the 1920s with this kind of fringy stuff on there. So in there, I just tucked some original ephemera pieces, a postcard of this church. And then this is another page of that old German book. I think it's depicting some Bible events like Adam and Eve and some other images on this side. And that takes us to our last page. And I just put this image on with these beautiful photo corners. So I hope you enjoyed that flip through today. It's a little bit of a larger one, but I will be back again with another journal. So until next time, bye-bye.